Bumblebees still bustling with summer's energy. On buddleias, moths and butterflies are nectar-sweet accessories. The garden still glows with colourful gems. But the dusty antiquing of blooms begins. A warm welcome to our early September small space garden tour. We cultivate beds, borders and patio containers in Kent, southeast England, and our hardiness zone is roughly equivalent to 8B. In the last week, there's been a gentle but tangible feeling of change and transition. A gently slowing pulse. Perhaps it started with the harvesting and shaping of lavender bushes. Or with the mellowing of afternoon sun rays. But when you find yourself favouring a steaming cup of tea on the patio instead of a tall, cold, ice-laden drink, you know that autumn is announcing its arrival. We are completely charmed by statuesque Gladiolus murielae, the Ethiopian Peacock Orchid. Gracefully bowing, pure white star-like petals have an exquisitely striking ring of feathery claret markings and a delicious scent, which I find subtle on ours, but has been described as haunting, tropical, coconutty and sweet and fruity. This is a traditional cutting garden favourite, but we love its late season glamour in a patio container. And as a slow starter, by planting corms in their own pot, you can ensure that earlier emerging plants don't outcompete it for the full sun it needs. This is a natural evolutionary beauty, not a cultivar but a species of the family Iridaceae. Its natural habitat is Eastern Africa, from Ethiopia to Malawi. I can only imagine the beauty of these flower populations in the wild, but over the years we've admired these plants in the iconic setting of Sissinghurst Castle Garden. Corms are planted from late April to early June in extremely well-drained soil, nice and deep, so you won't need to stake as they grow. The larger the corms, the better the display. Although I kept my corms cool and dark, they had already sprouted when I came to plant in early May, but happily that wasn't a problem. This plant prefers a sheltered spot, but copes admirably on our windy plot. As it is not UK hardy, we can remove foliage after first frosts and keep the whole pot dry and under cover in the garage for winter, or lift corms and store until replanting in April. I think the pairing with Hesperantha Pink Princess is pleasingly pretty, but our Hesperantha do look rather droopy this year. Unfortunately, I left them all summer in the semi-shaded area of the garden where they are kept over winter for shelter, so foliage has stretched itself one-sidedly towards the light source. But the plants will slowly adjust themselves now they are out in the autumn sunshine, and there are still plenty of flowers to come. bold, bright and handsome Salvia Josh is another eye-catchingly attractive late-season performer, and it offers a rich and irresistible nectar and pollen supply to insects. A few weeks ago, when I first saw that some of its pristine pear green leaves had been nibbled into small holes, I immediately blamed slugs and snails as the offenders. But a nighttime foray revealed an unexpected culprit. Now, late-night garden wanders by torchlight are always a fascinating and slightly surreal experience, not least because you can turn your flowers into giant triffids, if you so wish, before bedtime. And sometimes large frogs in their nocturnal hunting grounds can suddenly jump out and make you squeal.
It just jumped through.
And the true leaf nibbler we discovered was a speckled bush-cricket. It's funny how one's perception immediately changes, because I find crickets and grasshoppers extremely cute and instantly did not begrudge the cricket for snacking on my precious salvia leaves, thenceforth viewing the holes with benign indulgence rather than the annoyance that damage by slugs and snails engenders. A little searching reveals the garden is full of crickets right now, although we don't often hear them. We lightly trimmed our bay tree a few days ago, placing a sheer sheet over plants beneath to keep falling cuttings from getting tangled in them, and several crickets unexpectedly dropped from the tree, as well as small snails and spiders. I was glad to be wearing a hat. One of my favourite poems is John Keates on the grasshopper and cricket. And as summer gradually slips away from us for another year, I thought I would read part of it. I will leave the entire beautiful work in the description box below. On the grasshopper and cricket. The poetry of earth is never dead. When all the birds are faint with the hot sun and hide in cooling trees, a voice will run from hedge to hedge about the new-mown mead. That is the grasshopper's. He takes the lead in summer luxury. He has never done with his delights, for when tired out with fun, he rests at ease beneath some pleasant weed. We wanted to create greater focal emphasis on our Cretian style planter, so we nudged aside the massive containers obscuring it to reveal its pleasing rotund form and handled rim, and planted up an internal removable container with Echinacea Sensation Pink, which I think does look rather sensational against the deliciously deep plummy tones of Smokebush foliage, complemented by the underplanting of seductively dark leafage, an Ipomoea cultivar called Solar Power Black, a name reflecting the sunshine needed to maintain its inky depth of colour. Both these plants perform best in full sun. This vibrant pink coneflower is a deciduous and UK hardy perennial, renowned for being highly attractive to pollinators, although so far bumblebees and honeybees have ignored its charms, whilst the smallest solitary bees have shown keen interest and seem as captivated as I am. Once blooms have faded, the cone-shaped heads will become a food source for finches and other seed-loving birds visiting the garden. The seductive licorice-leafed Ipomoea is not UK hardy and will either join our houseplants indoors in the cold months, or we'll need to take cuttings before frosts arrive, which can be left to root in water. The punchy, saturated colour of Sensation Pink is picked up in the hot pink petals of Salvia Pink Pong. This is one of our hardiest salvias and has happily flowered non-stop since June. It seems to have enjoyed the cooler than usual start to the summer. In contrast to Pink Pong, our 3 Salvia Armistad plants seem to be still sulking about the cool early summer temperatures and are mere shadows of the generous sized specimens they had grown into by this time last year. We are hoping they put on a late season romping growth spurt to boost their important pollen and nectar rich flower supply and entice lovely foraging creatures to the autumn garden. If you wondered what was in the Cretan planter before the Echinacea moved in, and where did those pom-pom pale purple alliums go, well, our Salvias Cerro Potosi have been bringing its relaxed, sprawling kind of nonchalant charm to the container since June, and is now on holiday on the other side of the patio. It has relaxed back from full flowering mode, but is still sustaining pollinators, and it's in good company, with a nearby crowd of rather powerful pinks to chime in with. And as the alliums set seed, they create a textural contrast with lusher foliage. The only things needed to perfect the picture are the stunning flowers of Dahlia Lou Farman. Happily, her foliage has recovered well after the summer slug onslaught, but lately snails have taken to munching the buds just as they're about to open. So once again, we are putting her a little more out of harm's way on the garden table at night. And I think once her flowers open, her beauty will be amplified by Sensation Pink. One of the most divinely aromatic pleasures in the gardening calendar is trimming and harvesting lavender seed heads, but then comes the slight pang with the absence of the soft, romantic, dusty blue faded circle of flowers in the centre of the garden. So I don't know if that was what influenced me at the garden centre to make a beeline for Eryngium magical blue globe with its vintage wash of lilac-y blue flower heads and spiky bracts in prongs of tarnished silver. But once I saw the number of bumblebees it was attracting, which sadly weren't included in the purchase, it was hard to resist. I planted it in the Cretan pot in the middle of the lavender rondel, and the bees immediately made their approval known. But there are potential drawbacks to this impulse buy and rather unconsidered planting. On the plus side, this compact, hardy perennial Eryngium is well suited to containers and has drought-resistant qualities. But it does need fertile soil and is growing next to Convolvulus neorum, which prefers fertility on the lower side. So that's the first possible issue. Secondly, I really value the Convolvulus in winter months for the lovely uplifting silvery qualities of the foliage, and the Eryngium will have brown seed heads by this time, which will of course provide texture and structural interest, but I suspect may detract from the desired effect of the Convolvulus. And thirdly, there is the potential issue of competition although the planter is very much on the generous side and should accommodate the needs of both. So while I am thoroughly enjoying its presence, I may have to apologise to this Eryngium and relocate it elsewhere in the garden. As my uncle used to say, it takes years of trial and error to become an amateur gardener, and sometimes we do more research in the transplanting phase than the original planting. But that's human nature, and we all mean well and want our plants and our pollinators to be happy, as well as needing to feel content with the choices we've made. And for your choice in joining us here for our early September garden tour, a heartfelt thank you. And to everyone who subscribes, likes and supports us here at Apple Pea Fern Sea, we really appreciate you being with us and sharing in our enjoyment of the garden. We leave you with small moments of sweet memories and nature's magnetism and magic. And until next time, we wish you all flowerful times and nature-soothed minds.